Hello, everybody. Welcome to the next episode in our live stream. We are talking about the power of awareness, the power of awareness and living aware. And we really want to explore what is awareness? What's the power? Where does that power come from? And what is that when you can tap into it? So welcome, Betty.
Welcome.
All right. So let's talk about this and frame this up before we get into the whole meat of it. But let's talk about what's your overview of this whole thing of awareness. Let's just, as an introduction to this whole discussion, just.
Well, I was really surprised in talking with a good friend, one that's been a student of science for a long time, that there is no perception of the role that your own awareness plays in how your day lives out. Mm-hmm. It looks like, what occurs, the quality of what occurs, the sequence of what occurs, the way you respond to it, the way it responds to you, all of that. We've just been brought up, those of us who have studied science for years, to recognize that we live and move and have being mentally, but we don't really reckon with what that means. So when you say you're going to live the power of awareness, it means you're going to pay attention, consciously pay attention to the things that get your attention, the things that get your awareness going, the things that you look up and say, oh, look what that is. Because we tend to go through our daily experience ignoring most of it. Of course, I'm in the house and that's the door and that's the living room and there's my friend over there and I'm going to work this morning and I'm going to have breakfast and blah, 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 blah. And we pay so little attention to all of the stuff that decorates, if you will, or occupies or is included in our everyday living experience. And we tend to think that there's some nebulous power somewhere that's making all that stuff come together. And we fail to pick up that nebulous power we're talking about is our own awareness.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's time to talk about conscious awareness.
Yep. Yeah. And so I want to just let everybody know that we are sponsored by the Institute of Metaphysical Science. You can go out to our website at scientificmetaphysics.org and you can get books and seminars. You can see the events that are happening that you can participate in, all of that if you want to deepen your study of metaphysical science. So let's dive right in. Now, when you think about the questions of available, when you talk about conscious awareness or awareness, my question is, how do you know that you're actually consciously aware versus just reacting to what's showing up? What's that distinction? I want to bring that into the conversation a bit.
Yeah, well, that's not really a distinction on our subject. Anything that you react to is you're paying attention to your personal ID program rather than who you are. Your conscious awareness is focused on the language. You're focused in the past when you're a reaction machine.
Yep.
You're not actually present.
Okay. So basically, if I'm consciously aware, what's the flavor of that? If I'm aware and what's the flavor of it? Just give me an idea of the flavor of that, what that is like. I want to draw that distinction.
Okay. I just want to take a minute here to talk briefly about Margaret Laird's experience of being in the hospital when she was on a trip to India. And I don't know whether she was in Tehran but she was over in Europe, in the Middle East. And she became really ill, and they had her in the hospital. And she said she had, I think she called it double pneumonia. But anyway, she said she woke up from time to time, and she would have this thought about what's going on here. And then she'd say, well, I don't know why it looks this way, but all my years of living this science, this fact, this truth, that all is infinite mind, infinitely manifest, that's going to pay off. And I'm just as well as I am sick, and I'm just as sick as I am well. One thing is going on, and it's all right. And then she'd go back to sleep. And she said very soon, and they were very worried about her. She said, in fact, she found out afterwards they didn't expect her to live through this thing. But in a very short time, she began to improve remarkably. Now, her conscious awareness was focused on the facts of being, the facts that she had been consciously living for many years. It absolutely met the need and shaped her experience of being sick, having to be in the hospital. Mm-hmm. She had top-notch care. She was just fine. She recovered very quickly, amazed them all. So that was kind of an extreme example, but she was telling us something with that story. And she talks about it in her, I think it's London 1965 seminar. And what she's telling us is that when you pay attention to what's true for you, for your universe, for your experience, everything about you, when you pay attention to the facts, instead of wallowing in the fiction, which is the belief about yourself, the facts will shape you, shape your experience of living, and give you the help you need in any situation. I don't care what it looks like. It can be physical, it can be financial, it can be relationships, it could be whatever. But there will be answers, and they will not leave you in the dust with no recourse. Mm-hmm. So if you want to be in charge and in control, you will pay attention to living the facts as well as you know them. And really check yourself out on it. The first thing that occurs to me when something comes up that looks like it's not okay in the human picture, and I think, oh dear, that kind of stuff, I think, wait a minute, there's just one intelligence. There's one principle functioning, and man is the reflective presence of that functioning being. Mm-hmm. So I don't get to vote. All I have to do is acknowledge source. Mm-hmm. And stay conscious to that and be willing to let it look however it needs to look. That is not the thing that governs my experience.
So we know that if we're reacting to the way things look or seem or appear, then we're being reactive, that we're actually assigning cause somewhere where cause doesn't actually exist.
That's right. And you're living in the past.
Yeah.
Because what you're reacting to is over with.
Right.
If it's stuff you're seeing, it's already done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. I wanted to let people know if you have any questions or any comments, you can type them into your comments or there's a comment bar at whatever. You can type them in there. That we'll see them. They'll be a little delayed, and we would love any questions or comments at all, and we will take those up. So just type those in, and if you're enjoying this conversation, you can give us a thumbs up or a like and a heart in Facebook. So whichever that is, you can do any of those things. We like all of that. And here, let's dive in. So in Science and Health by Mary Baker Eddy, she wrote, knowledge that we can accomplish the good we hope for stimulates the system to act in the direction which mind points out. So unpack that a little bit.
Well, that's a hard one to unpack. Um, when you recognize, it's talking about knowledge.
Yes.
When I know that I can accomplish the good I have going on, I'm motivated, you see, to move in the direction that my intelligence indicates.
Mm-hmm.
That's really kind of what it's saying.
Is that like it? Would that be like an intuitive knowing? Like something comes up and you think, yeah, that's the right thing to do. That's what I'm gonna. That's the human doing. Is that part of this?
Intuition would certainly be in the direction that your mind points out,
Mm-hmm.
but it's the knowledge that you're standing on. It's the understanding that all is infinite mind, infinitely manifest, right here, right now. And then it comes to you that you need to do so-and-so.
Mm-hmm.
So your intuition plays in and you move over and do whatever occurs and find that it is an answer.
Mm-hmm.
And it may not even be you doing it. It might be a friend that comes along and says, you ought to put this over here. You say, oh, yeah, that sounds fine. It doesn't make any difference how it occurs, but the solution will show up.
Yeah.
If you're focused, if you're paying attention, those are the only words I can think of at the moment, okay. But paying attention to the facts that have you exist.
Yeah.
What's actually going on?
Right.
We have all these pet phrases that we can spout off and use, but if we're not consciously aware that they actually shape what I do every day, where I am, what I say, how I feel, all of that is summed up in conscious awareness. And it is conscious awareness that makes the difference between living a life that's rewarding and fulfilling and satisfying and floundering around wondering what to do next.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Now, also in Science and Health, Mary Baker Eddy wrote, take possession of your body and govern its feeling and action.
Yep. Mrs. Eddy had another statement. She said, Christian Scientists, be a law unto yourself.
Uh-huh.
Well, you can't be a law if you're not willing to pay attention to the facts present.
Yeah.
So if you're not consciously aware, you're lost in the shuffle.
Mm-hmm.
If you can pay attention and live the fact that you live and move and have being as a reflective presence of the God idea in action. So it's not like a crapshoot. It's not like luck, as it were.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of chance. It's a matter of principle functioning. And principle is always functioning, but you do not move in accord with principle if you're unaware that principle is functioning.
Yeah. Okay. And so it could be whatever shows up, I can look at it and say, I don't know why it needs to look this way, but on we go.
Yeah, you allow it to be because you're depending on the law.
Right.
Of divine perfection functioning right now, right here.
Right.
Including.
Right. Okay. All right. Awesome. Okay. And we have a couple of comments. So Red Face Joe, welcome. And this is from YouTube. We love it. So here we go. The comment is, pay attention to living the facts as best you know them, ? What is acknowledging the source? Sounds like reciting non-realized theories from a book.
Okay. This sounds like it would be somebody fairly unfamiliar with scientific metaphysics.
Mm-hmm.
Fundamental to scientific metaphysics and the teachings of that is that all is infinite mind, not a brain mind, but universal mind, a universal intelligence functioning. And that's what constitutes and conditions everything
Mhm.
from A to Z, everything at all. So if I'm acknowledging that as the source of being, my being, your being, all being, it's a reflective presence. It's not like a voting situation. Source is the action. Reflection is the look of it, the execution of it. Not the look, but the execution of it. The action of the God idea is man. So that's what we mean about acknowledging the source. I don't think of myself as a personal instigator of anything, but I know that since I'm the action of the supreme power that exists in the world, being itself being, that power. If I exist as the reflective presence of that action, that's acknowledging source.
Right. Rather than reacting to what it looks like, what all of your circumstances and everything else look like, it's knowing that that may be the way it looks, but the way that it is the God idea, divinity unfolding the only way I can see it.
Yeah, those old things, there's a divinity that shapes our ends. Well, this is what we're talking about as source.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And the other thing that you want to bear in mind with the way it looks is a language individual to each one. Your language does not say anything to me. My language says something to me.
Right. And I think it's worth saying that when you say language, you're talking about everything you can see, hear, feel, taste, touch, all your circumstances, all of that.
The physical universe
is labeled language.
Human living. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good one. Thank you. Because that wouldn't be obvious.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So Joe, if you have more question, we would welcome it, but hopefully that clarified a few things for you. Okay. All right. And then also in Science and Health, Mary Baker Eddy said or wrote, keep distinctly in thought that man is the offspring of God, not of man.
Yeah. I'm not a man-made creature. That may be the way it looks. That is not the fact. That is not the way it is.
So it speaks to the divinity, the divine nature of who we be.
And keeping distinctly in thought is another way to say consciously aware that man is the offspring of God, not of man. Then I'm standing on firm ground. I'm acknowledging facts.
Okay. All right. Very good. Now, in Christian Science Re-Explored by Margaret Laird, she wrote, perception is reception. The persons, places, and things apparently constituting my world are my own self-evolving consciousness.
Yep.
So just unpack that a little bit.
Well, one of the things that we forget is that we live uniquely. My perception is what has my world look the way it is and treat me the way it does and function for me the way it does. My perception has nothing to do with the possibility that you're over there having perception as well.
Right.
That's none of my business. I can only live within my own allness.
Yes.
And just to add another confusing point, I can readily say that my experience of Kim is my experience of Kim. That may not exist for anyone else at all. She has her experience of herself. Other people have their experience of Kim, but I live with my experience of Kim totally. I have no way to live with any other experience except my own. And experience is the teacher.
Right. Right. And we see the world in we see the world like the one reality unfolds for us in the best way we can see it. And I think you've said so many times in my life anyways, that it's all discovery. It's all self-discovery, everything.
Yep.
And when I have that perception of what's going on, it frees up things for me to see that it's all just unfolding.
And it's me unfolding.
Uh-huh.
It all is infinite mind. So
Yeah.
what's unfolding for me is the mental nature, the wholeness, the perfection, the reality that's present when Betty shows up.
Right.
Because
Right.
it's being itself being. And Betty is like the piece I have to play on the game board
Right.
with.
So to the degree that I can be aware, so I can have all this stuff going on around me, whatever's going on with my business, with, my relationships, all this stuff going on around me. If I can keep my grounding in the facts of the divinity present, showing up the only way I can see it, is that being consciously aware?
Yep.
Okay. So it's not getting all embroiled. Then the times when I spend embroiled in, God dang it, why is there, and then this happened and that happened, that's all reaction machine stuff.
Yeah, that's when you think Kim is affected.
Right. That's when I think that all the stuff in my life, all the circumstances are conspiring.
Happening to me.
Okay, good. So I just want to keep distinguishing that, because I think there's this real power, and I've experienced throughout my life, and I know that you have as well. And that's why I wanted us to really dive into this whole thing called awareness and conscious awareness, and make it very distinctly clear from me being aware of all the circumstances in my life. And so that perception piece, and where I know where the facts or where the cause or where the source is, it seems that's the distinction, or that's the difference.
Yeah, and I want to make one little point here, and that is that each individual lives the world as he is, not as it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's important, because I don't live my life the way you live your life. Because for me, is there somebody out there?
Mm-hmm.
I can only live the way I live. I have to be myself being.
Mm-hmm.
That's why self-discovering is the only helpful thing that goes on with you. What good does it do you to know what goes on with me?
Mm-hmm. Well, if I look at my world as all of it, whatever I see going on with you is my world.
That's right.
Unfolding. I don't know if what there is unfolding there, right? Like,
it has nothing to do with me.
Right. But I also want, right. So I want to draw that distinction, because it's like all of it, you and, the people in my life, whatever, is all my own living of myself.
Yeah. And this is the way you perceive your infinite world.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So I can't get over there and live you perceiving your world. I have it all, but it includes everything. It's not like I'm over here and you're over there. So I want it to be the all is one situation here.
And the Betty that may not exist for anybody else.
Correct.
In fact, doesn't.
Right.
I have no idea what you've got going on.
Although I'm really trying to have everybody see Mom the way that I do.
You can't do it. They have to see it the way they do.
Yeah. All right. So in Christian Science Re-Explored, Margaret Laird also says, what we sense because of what we are, the sensing or soul knowledge that is existence.
Yeah. And the word soul, that was a synonym that Mary Baker Eddy gave to the God idea. And it has to do with the whole sensorium: seeing, hearing, feeling, smelling, tasting, touching. All of the senses are actually languaging, if I can use that word, the God idea in a broader sense than just saying man is the reflection of God's being.
Yeah.
when you say soul, you're talking about sensing and seeing and hearing and tasting and all of the stuff that enriches and expands your sense of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's all God being. And you reflectively have all of that going on because that is God being and you're the reflection of it, the evidence of it, the manifestation of it, if I can put it that way.
Okay. All right. Very good. Now we move into Mind is the Athlete, your book. And on page 140, you have a quote from T.S. Eliot. And that quote says, "We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we have started and to know the place for the first time."
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, every time you alert yourself to a fact of being, you are knowing the place for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And when you know it, you are it. And there's always a fresh, like, wow, a new expansion of who you see yourself to be.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I
Because
think
it's a right now discovery. It's almost like what I would call beginner's mind, right? It's not, oh, I know this. It's more like, wow. And you're experiencing it, knowing it for the first time, like a new discovery, not like a,
right.
I know that. And I think that
new at a different level.
Yeah.
I can know that all is infinite mind from a whole different level.
Yeah.
I was reading an article in the newspaper that had to do with physics, and it turned on a light bulb, so to speak. And I thought, wow. And I know that Betty couldn't comprehend that stuff, but like there's an opening to a fact that's present, that's real. And all of a sudden I'm saying, yeah.
Right.
And for that moment, it's brand new. And I may read it again tomorrow and see a whole new, wow.
Right. I think also a place where this is very interesting is with the people in our lives.
Yes.
Like significant others, you know, husbands, wives, whatever. We think we know them. And to the degree we think we know them, we're not knowing them for the first time. We're holding them to who they were at some point in time when we made a decision about who they were.
Yeah, a memory.
Yeah, a memory. So it's all that as opposed to knowing them for the first time, like getting, oh my God, you're interested in that? How cool. I never knew that, right? Like there's always that room for discovery and that room for beginning, which is that beginner mind kind of concept. And I think that's what this speaks to a bit.
Yep.
Yeah, very cool. All right. And also in Mind is the Athlete, you wrote, "The reservoir inside of which all that exists or seems to exist occurs is called consciousness, universal mind, or being." And I could also add the God idea into that.
Yep.
Yeah. So the reservoir inside of which all that exists, all the content, everything that you can see, hear, feel, taste, touch, all of it.
Well, the see, feel, hear, taste, touch is the language identifying the God idea in understandable form for you.
Yeah.
So your language is unique to you. Mine is to me. And it is identifying source.
Right.
Without source, none of it would be available.
Right. Right. So then that's the source that we want to acknowledge.
Yep.
And be present to, regardless of the content, the circumstances that are showing up in your life.
Yep.
And then that leaves you much, much more free as well. And then you say, Mind is the Athlete. You also then say on page 141 twice, evidently, you say, "Our exploration of the nature of being involves an examination of our God concept and is wholly mental."
Mm-hmm.
Our exploration of the nature of being involves an examination of our God concept, whatever you hold that to be, and is wholly mental. Say more about that, is wholly mental.
Well, all is infinite mind.
Right. but
Yeah.
not like a brain action.
Well, no, mine doesn't have anything to do with the thing called Betty or Kim.
That's
It
right.
has to do with being.
Yeah.
The being itself, being constitutes all the seen, heard, and felt, which is languaging understandably for you,
Yes.
looking like the world you walk through,
Yep.
looking like the world I walk through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So as I explore the nature of being itself, I am examining source. I'm examining what I've always held as the God idea.
Mm-hmm.
But what we get stuck with is the human being's concept of God.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow they have that be something separate from themselves that they think is an entity that can help them out.
Mm-hmm.
They don't see that their very existence is a reflection of that presence that we call the God idea.
Yeah.
There's nobody out there to help me out. The being me right now is the help.
Right.
So if I'm not consciously aware, I'm helpless.
Yeah. But at the point at which you do everything you know to do in the world to try and move around all the pieces and try and, affect the end that you're after, and you throw your hands up and you say, I give. Right there in the I give is the acknowledgement of something bigger that's shaping the whole thing.
Yeah, it's willingness to let go of the concepts you've got around you and saying, I don't know why it looks this way. The hell with it.
Right.
And allowing it to show up the way it shows up.
Yeah.
And when you can do that and be free of hanging on to your concept, miracles occur.
Yeah. Very good.
And I also wanted to say that we're doing this in a series of 3 meetings. This is number 1. We have session 2 next week, session 3 the following week. It's one of those subjects you can't kill in 30 minutes.
Right. All right. So we're gonna explore it the next couple of sessions. We're gonna explore it. So next week we'll all be here in Minneapolis doing the session rather than split halfway across the country. So that'll be fun. And then the following week we will also be here in Minneapolis. So the next 2 weeks. All right. So that's it for today. I welcome any comments, any questions that you have. Please go and check out the website and see how you can participate if you're interested in that. And then we look forward to seeing you same time next week, Wednesday, starting at 5 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Central. And we'll see you then. And thank you so much for being here and participating. We'll do another session on awareness next week.